How do you feel about the dry county status of Craighead? Is it a good thing, and why?
I would say it was a good thing. It really, I don't know how to answer that question, honestly.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's the best thing that's ever happened for Craighead County.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. If you make it a wet county, then that promotes, drinking among kids that aren't 21 yet, especially college kids, and that's why I think it ought to be dry.
For one, I think it is absolutely great. I said, for people of our age, being a college community, very rarely do we ever see a community with a university such as ours and our size dry, and I think it's great because of that.
Well, I feel that it should be wet because, for one thing, you have a lot more industries, businesses, coming in.
Well, I feel that we could get more entertainment, variety, and better restaurants here if we would drop the dry county policy.
It's kind of weird you say it's dry, but then there's clubs that you can go to and get alcohol, so it's it's not really totally dry.
You mean this is a dry county?
Bottom line is you're either going to be legally wet or illegally wet, and we're illegally wet.
Well, I'm from Los Angeles, and the concept of a dry county doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I live in Jonesboro for 6 years and never ever see anyone drunk people here, never. I like it very much.
Jonesboro is a wonderful community. We have crime, and the crime is on the increase, I'm sure, here, and would be much more, I think, if we'd had the element of alcohol so being able to get freely.
Because of my beliefs, I believe that this should be a dry county. I mean, everybody has to make their own choices, and I believe that as long as this is a dry county, it helps people make the right choice.
You spend $20, you got a membership at any club. It's $5 at one of them. Or if you don't mind making, a 10-minute drive, then you can get it there. And I usually buy it in bulk whenever I go down there myself. So.
Like I said earlier, it's the wettest dry county I've ever seen.
It's probably one of the wettest dry counties I know of in intersections. So.
This is the wettest dry county I guess I know of, or anywhere else.
It's the wettest dry county in Arkansas.
When I want a six-pack or a bottle of wines, I drives to Poinsett or the Green County lines. I picks up my booze and, I bring them back this way. But in another county is where my money stays.
Yes, Craighead County. To many, it's the wettest dry county in Arkansas. To me, it's always been home, or more specifically, Jonesboro. It's county seat of about 50,000 inhabitants. It's my hometown. And all in all, it's not a bad place to grow up. I mean, you've got your schools, your churches, a state university, a mall, and yes, quiet suburban neighborhoods.
Living in a dry county, oh yes.
But I guess the best part of Craighead County's small-town life is the great food, like you can buy at pot liquors, which kind of takes us back to the topic at hand. I mean, liquor. No, not that kind of liquor. That kind of liquor. It's the one thing you can't buy anywhere in Jonesboro or Craighead County for that matter, unless you belong to the 501, Desperados, the Eagles Lodge, the Elks Lodge, the VFW, the Country Club, the Ridgepoint Country Club. Okay. Maybe you can buy booze here, but not unless you belong to a club or know someone who does, and then of course you have to pay through the nose. Or you can pay less by driving south to the Poinsett County line where you'll find a liquor store, or you can head east to the Mississippi County line where you'll find a liquor store, or you can migrate north to the Greene County line where you'll find the party store right in the heart of Indian Country, or go west, young man, to the Jackson County line where right across the tracks, you guessed it, there's a liquor store. I guess you could say that Craighead County is kind of like a dry island amidst a sea of wet counties, with a few restricted watering holes, of course. Hi, I'm Carey Byars, and I invite you to join me as we trace the evolution of the wet-dry issue in Craighead County from its days as a wet county in post-prohibition Arkansas to its dry status today. Along the way, we'll take a look at both the pros and the cons of the issue, a controversy that dates back over a half-century ago when Craighead County voters decided to put the issue to the vote. 1944, the year that Craighead County dried up.
Huntington at that time was the dividing line of the town. The farmers or that persons would stay north of Huntington. South of Huntington would be what you say more of the city stores. They sold city goods and things like that. In the other town you get farming equipment, things like that. Well, at that time they sold beer in town. If you had a restaurant, you could sell beer.
Enjoying a cold brew with your supper at a local restaurant is just one of the many differences between the Jonesboro and Craighead County of 52 years ago and today. Jonesboro is a small, bucolic college town with just over 10,000 residents, a largely agricultural community with a white-collar professional or two. Looking back decades later, some Jonesboro residents today have wistful reminiscences about what was a better time.
I guess it was a better town because we had no crime. You could go off and leave your house wide open. You didn't have to worry about keeping your doors locked. So we were crime-free prior to that time.
Yet Jonesboro in 1944 was an economic center for a wet county, and at times it attracted a somewhat diverse clientele. Liquor stores like the one at the old Hotel Noble in downtown Jonesboro were frequented by many of the county's residents. However, it was the tavern run by Burley Fuller on Main Street that conjures up the most colorful memories.
It was it was a rough one there. They'd go in there and drink and piss on the floor and everything else, and you'd have to carry them out. It was kind of a rough situation.
And it was sort of on Saturday, sort of a meeting place where the women could get up and talk and trade this and trade that, and men could do the same, or they could go and get beer. But now, with that many people in that beer hall there, or that restaurant, about the middle of the afternoon, it'd get pretty wild, and they, of course, would get sick too. They'd just go right out the front of the sidewalk there and the curb and just let her go. And I think everybody back then in those days chewed tobacco. So if you wanted to get anywhere around that bank, that corner, either you walked in the street or across the street to get by because there's just a big crowd of men there and chewing the fat, this and that. And in case something did happen, they called police. Why, they'd come down, maybe 2 or 3, and of course they had good sense too. They wasn't about to go in there with 40, 50 boys been there half a day, feeling pretty good. So that's real bad that they didn't.
Incidents such as those quickly invoked the wrath of townsfolk who had been battling in the decades since the prohibition of alcohol to restore Craighead County to a dry status.
Well, naturally they were upset about it, and they went to work. And I remember the WCTU, that's the Women's Christian Temperance Union, were very concerned about it. And they really worked faithfully to try to get it changed. The women had more to do with it, I think, than the men did.
The first hint that trouble was brewing in Craighead County came on May 21st, 1944. An advertisement ran in the Jonesboro Evening Sun for a play to be presented at the First Methodist Church that night. The title of the play was The Prisoner at the Bar. It starred a local cast and was called, quote, a temperance drama. It deals vividly with the evils of liquor, unquote. The paper, however, did not review the play. 3 months later, on August 17th, the Sun ran a small article on the front page entitled, Hearing on Local Option Petition Set. The date of that hearing came a week later on Thursday, August 24th, when Judge Clarence Freeze set an election date for September 23rd, allowing the maximum 30 days so that, quote, service people and absentee voters will have as much time as possible to get their ballots returned, unquote. As it turned out, the petition drive had netted 300 more signatures than the law required. 15% of the 10,319 eligible voters put the requirement at 1,548, so more than 1,800 individuals must have signed the petition. The race was on, and the next 30 days saw an ever-increasing amount of advertising on both sides in the newspaper. On Saturday, September 2nd, the paper announced that servicemen could have a family member pick up their absentee ballots, but civilians had to request their own. The paper mentioned that 2 absentee ballots had already been cast. 3 days later, the dries advertised appealing to the absentee voters, and 1 week later, on the 12th, the Wets opened their campaign with an anti-prohibition appeal. On Thursday, September 14th, the Wets ran an ad with the names of 30 citizens listed below it. It requested that no changes be made in the liquor laws until our fighting men have returned to their homes and had an opportunity to express themselves on this local issue. The ad noted over 5,000 Craighead County citizens were away. The next day, the dries countered with an appeal of their own. In a half-page ad, a charging soldier in the classic follow me stance of the infantryman shouted, "I'm protecting your home. Are you protecting mine while I'm away?" Underneath the caption read, "Make no mistake, the majority of men in the service want liquor outlawed." Clearly, both sides were vying to be the voice for local boys fighting in World War II. Yet M.J. Fox, an Army photographer, one of the Jonesboro servicemen who missed the election, believes that those votes would have had little impact.
Now the veterans, what you're talking about, the veterans, most of the boys there, they were young kids. In other words, I got in the service when I was 25, which is looked fairly old, but later on we began to get kids overseas with us that it was kind of, they'd peel on Saturday night to see if they had to shave. In other words, it's getting the 18, 19-year-old over there then.
On the eve of the election, Friday, September 22nd, the Jonesboro Evening Sun printed, "Larger voter turnout is forecast," and both sides of the issue ran last-minute campaigns. Again, the dry stated that the servicemen wanted the county dry and requested that readers call their church office if any further information was needed. On that final evening, the Wets requested that the people vote to leave it alone until the boys come home. The issue was finally in the hands of the voters. On Monday, September 25th, 1944, the election headlines ran, "Dries win by 982 majority in Craighead." A second article noted that legal liquor and beer will make exit in county in 21 days. Laws to strengthen enforcement sought. The final vote tally had been 3,005 to 2,023, with all but 2 of the local ballot boxes voting dry. However, it was in the absentee ballot boxes where the real story was told. That box went overwhelmingly wet. If 10,319 citizens were eligible to vote and only 5,000 cast their ballots while the other 5,000 were away, and still the dries won by less than 1,000 votes, the question remains as to whether or not the servicemen wanted the county dry.
Well, now, if the veterans who were off fighting World War II at the time, had they been here, do you think the vote would have been different than it actually was?
Yes, no question about it. No question about it, because in the service you got all the whiskey you wanted and all over, any drop-ins everywhere. It's more or less the same way on World War II.
3 weeks later, on October 14th, 1944, 10 licensed liquor stores and 3 licensed beer dealers shut down. In that issue of the Jonesboro Evening Sun, the 44 Cab and Bus Company ran an advertisement informing its customers that it was suspending regular Saturday night service. The ad listed a tire shortage as the reason it was shutting down on Saturdays, but it seems more likely that without alcohol, there would not be enough trade to make the service worthwhile. They suggested that customers take the bus.
As a photographer, 1978 at KAIT, and during that time when they was trying to get the county to become wet, it was very, very interesting. We would travel around, we would gather news, of course, and watching the both sides as spectators, you know, and also too as news gatherers. We found it very exciting.
34 years later, the wet-dry issue was again put to the test for Craighead County voters to decide. In 1978, county residents faced a pivotal election year. A 31-year-old attorney general and future president was campaigning for his first term as governor. Likewise, a future governor and a senator were also campaigning. And Jonesboro had burgeoned into a manufacturing town with a state university. Such expansion spurred the group Citizens for Freedom of Choice to lead a petition drive to place the issue on the Craighead County ballot in the November elections. Once again, dry opposition organized to oppose the measure.
Well, of course, being a minister, I'm opposed to drinking. And when the issue came up in Arkansas, where we go by counties, whether you're wet or dry, Being in the Ministerial Association, we discussed it, discussed what we felt was the Scriptures part of it, and decided to vote against it. And then we had some in our group who was opposed to voting against it, felt it was a good thing to vote for it. So this led to lively discussions in our group. And as the issue became more political, and we began to take more of a stand on it, and voting among ourselves, talking about it, discussing it, and finally came to the decision that we were going to stand up against it as a ministerial group.
The ministerial group voted 24-6 to oppose the legal sale of alcohol, and ministers like Reverend Pat James quickly became engaged in an advertising campaign. A campaign that Harry Herget, spokesman for the Wetts in 1978, felt misrepresented the issue to local voters.
They made a very strong effort to make it a religious issue, because that tends to, it's real easy when you deal with sound bites if you just simply stand in front of people and say, all right, the choice is yours, and hold up a bottle of whiskey in one hand and the Bible in the other. You know, it's kind of a thing where simple-minded people tend to think there really is a difference here, and there's not. I mean, the thing is, this simply has to do with if you can be a Christian or Jew and still believe in consuming alcohol and not be violating any of the tenets of your faith. I mean, I don't know where they're coming from, but it's just something they felt comfortable doing. And a lot of people who are members of the churches here who opposed it consume alcohol. Many of the people, in fact, some of the most vocal people against it, members, and a lot of these people have died since this time, they were members of the country club, which has a private club permit, which dispenses alcohol. They had no problem being a member of that club. They had no conscientious objection whatsoever being a member of that club that sold alcohol, and as a member, they actually are co-owners of the permit. So they actually own part of the permit.
So there was an element of hypocrisy? And
It's a huge element of hypocrisy, but people turn their back to that as long as they got the Bible to stand behind, and unless you've got 20/20 vision, and a lot of these people don't, they're totally blinded by just the show of a Bible. They just think that, boy, that stands for everything. They don't understand what it means. So, and these people didn't, and it was just kind of disgusting.
Dry leaders like the late attorney Joe Boone and the now deceased Roy Jolly had in fact been members of the Jonesboro Country Club at the time of the election. Yet for religious leaders, it was the detrimental social effects that presumably would accompany legal sales that was the greatest concern.
I think you look at any of your statistics in any of your major cities where there's alcohol flowing, crime is always on the increase. And Jonesboro is a wonderful community. We have crime, and the crime is on the increase, I'm sure, here, and would be much more, I think, if we'd had the element of alcohol being able to get freely.
That's ludicrous, since virtually everyone who consumes alcohol in this county when they cross the county line after going to a liquor store is breaking the law in Arkansas. That's criminal activity right there. It's not enforced. If you want to enforce it, we could have criminal statistics here that would lead the country in terms of people violating the law. But our law enforcement officers simply choose not to enforce that law because it's stupid. It's unenforceable. It's just a stupid law. So anyway, our efforts were simply to bring the county kind of into the 20th century.
Still, for many, such as Ray Scales, then a photojournalist for a local television station, today a minister, the spread of so-called beer joints and honky-tonks loomed as a potential problem if Craighead County was to become a wet county again.
One of the many things that was a lot of emphasis was put on back in '78, that the poor neighborhoods, the lower income neighborhoods would, there would be just little row houses. You see what I mean? There would be little things on every corner where people were doing stuff they had no business doing, you know. So I never really given any thought since then, because I think if it was regulated like it's supposed to be, with that, I don't think we have that problem.
As Election Day drew nearer, it was increasingly apparent record numbers would be turning out at the polls. Craighead County Clerk Jane Todd, then a deputy official, remembers the public interest generated.
We did have a big turnout. We had approximately 30,000 registered voters at the time. And I believe we voted about 19,000, almost 19,000. And that is a big turnout for Craighead County.
However, unlike the election of 1944, the results of the 1978 vote left little doubt as to the predominant sentiments concerning Craighead County's future status concerning liquor sales. Although the turnout of just under 19,000 voters was less than the projected numbers, the election outcome was a clear and resounding repudiation of the Wetts. A total of 13,212 votes were cast in opposition of the Wett County measure. Only 5,532 ballots were in support. The ratio of 70% to 30% came as no surprise to some.
We took a poll, and our poll showed 70-30. We would lose at 70-30, and we knew that 6 weeks prior to the election. That's almost exactly how the vote turned out. So, I mean, our goal wasn't to make anybody mad. Our goal simply was to make a point. You know, this is the time to do it, and we felt like, you know, bring the issue to the forefront. I represent industries here in town. I had one industry, one big client here, FMC Corporation. The fellow who ran it told me, and he's told me several times, and since then FMC shut down and they divided up this particular facility here and spread it out over the country. But they said if they really didn't understand that Craighead County was dry, and if they had known that, knowing all the other alternatives they had, they never would have located here, ever. And he said they never would again locate in a county like this.
Yet, for the ministers who opposed legal sales, the election outcome was a welcome surprise.
It was, because I figured it was going to be closer than that.
Really?
From everything that came out in the papers and television, we did a lot of praying. But we were really pleasantly surprised when it came out that big a difference in the vote.
The issue has yet to be on the ballot since.
Now, obviously a lot of changes in Jonesboro over the last half century.
That's right.
Do you think that the attitudes toward liquor sales have changed since you were on the city council? Do you think there's a chance that maybe they will change in the future and become a Wett County again?
No, I don't believe they ever will.
Okay, why?
I don't think the churches will permit it. This town is full of churches, and they bear a lot of weight. And I don't think they'll ever get this county wet again.
18 years later, Craighead County is in many ways a different place. Jonesboro has virtually doubled in population size, and with that growth comes a diversity of opinion concerning the wet-dry issue that particularly exists among the religious community.
I think the reason why we're still dry is because of the religious factor. You know, I think that's the main reason. I don't know that I go so far as call it a religious issue. You know, I think there's a lot more important issues as far as our church is concerned to deal with, like abortion and such like that, whether or not somebody has the choice to drink or to buy alcohol or not is not high up on the list. So I wouldn't call it a religious issue per se. But I know other faith traditions, that's part of one of their focus of their faith, and so for them it is, but I don't think it is for the Catholic Church.
The Episcopal Church, this is one of our strengths and probably one of our weaknesses also, is that we really do not take stands on almost any moral issue. We have a real strong feeling that people should themselves struggle with the moral issues and decide for themselves.
We ought to do everything we can to keep it as dry as possible, as sober as possible, as accident-free on the highway as possible, and whatever we can do to make it a better place. That ought to be everybody's goal. I personally do not think liquor, by the drink, beer in the stores, those things will make Jonesboro and Craighead County a better place to live. I absolutely do not believe that, and I don't believe anybody else can say that and prove it statistically that it would if you brought liquor in and opened it up to where you could just have booze flowing like rivers.
Of course, alcoholism is a problem, and it can be, and it is devastating to families, but I think we're being naive in thinking that just because you would not sell it in Craighead County, do people think that there are not alcoholics in Craighead County because it's a dry county? That's a foolish position to take.
We live in a free society, but your freedom may be at my expense. My freedom may be at your expense. And we need to control things that we know are harmful to society, they must be kept under control. And that's the reason that I believe Craighead County is a cleaner county, a better county to live in than a county that's wet.
Clearly, religious leaders remain divided on the issue. However, for the business community, the potential financial benefits derived from liquor sales comes with a certain element of risk.
I've been in operations in other cities, in airports where I've had cocktail lounges, and yes, I mean, it's fabulous profits in alcohol. But there are problems too. The liability that goes with it is incredible. The third-party liability is just incredible. And if you are not on your toes and make sure that your patrons are not drunk, you've got to do that, or you can go out, they can have a wreck, and you can end up with some lawsuits that you won't believe.
Legal issues, moral issues, religious issues, all certain to be part of the debate as Craighead County residents continue to argue the future of the wettest dry county in Arkansas.
Personally, I think that people are going to have access to alcohol no matter where it is. If it were local or if it's 14 miles down the road, people are going to have access, so if they want it, they'll get it.
Well, I would support selling the liquor because of the fact that this, again, going back to what I just said about our position that we believe that people should be able to make their own decisions, and if selling liquor was legal, then people could make their own decisions.
I just simply don't believe it's a positive thing for us or anybody else. And I think we have a unique little place here, and we ought to. And I want it to grow. I want jobs to be provided because my kids need jobs. Everybody's kids need jobs. I need jobs. My church members need jobs. I want this town to grow. We have an excellent leadership in our mayor and our city council. I think good positive things are going on. And I think we need to keep it going in the direction that it's been going and keep it dry.
I think the population growth, I think the younger young people now don't see as much opposition to drinking as the older folks did. And I see a trend to go ahead and bring Craighead County back to being a wet county.
My only position is I don't see it changing unless the state law changes. And, you know, we'll remain here. Unfortunately, Jonesboro won't be my home for many more years because I will move. And that's not the main reason. That is one reason, but that is one of those, it's an important reason because it reflects upon the character of the community. When people think that way and see no need to change it, and it's like, I just prefer living in an area that's just a little bit more open-minded about things, and Jonesboro tends to be pretty well stuck on this, so that's it.
When I want a six-pack or a bottle of wines, I drive to Poinsett or the Green County lines. I picks up my booze and I bring them back this way. But in another county is where my money stays. Living in a dry county, oh yes.